This week on Influence, it's time to get mini. Greetings, friends and neighbors. Welcome back to Influence with me, Matt Silverman. Thanks for hanging out with me for another week, talking all things internet communities, internet culture, creativity, making a living on the information superhighway, driving trucks down that information superhighway, bringing the content from the content depot to the content store where we like to get. Is that an analogy for the information superhighway? I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. And the reason we gather here every week is to talk about people who do creative things on the internet, people who make a living from the internet, fandom, and what do we call it? Collective consciousness, art, things we like to enjoy. And today, as I told you last week, and probably a week or two before that, before the holidays, this is a person I know pretty well. Dare I call him a friend? Certainly a friend of the show. You can't see this, but I'm sitting at a desk. I don't want to brag. It's custom made. You want to know by who? The person on this show. He's not here yet. I don't know who that is in the background. I have not introduced him. But this fabulous desk that I'm sitting at was made by him. There was a time when he was at my home, and I was working right here in this very office studio. And he was installing a headboard for my daughter's bed because she got a big girl bed. You know, she was leveling up. She was putting a headboard in, and he was, connecting it to the frame. And I'm just here, making the Benjamins as I do. Is that a thing? I don't. And all of a sudden I hear like, "Hey, you got any Band-Aids? Hey, just something, just checking in." And I go upstairs and he's bleeding all over my house because he cut his hand open on something, and then it was fine. But then, we didn't have to call an ambulance, but that's what's going on over here. The reason he's on this program is because I am just a huge fan of his work. For two reasons. One, he's brilliantly talented, but two, I love video games. He loves video games. And there's lots of YouTubers and video game people on the internet. We know them and love them. Lots of podcasts and such. But my friend here is unique because he goes into the virtual worlds that we love from our video games. The architecture, the mysterious environments, the characters, the forests, what have you. And he takes stock of these places that are rendered in virtual space, and then he actually recreates them down to every last detail out of paper and other materials. We'll find out a bit more about that in a moment. In miniature form. So you see these epic vistas, you see these epic castles and places, and you're like, wow, look at that. And then you see his hand. And guess what? It's this big. Sorry, video viewers, you can't see me. It's tiny. And the detail and the craftspersonship, it's 2025, has set the internet ablaze. He has, I'm going to say, billions of followers on Instagram and other places. And people love his work. People like really, really big time video game YouTubers and other content creators have commissioned him to do all sorts of things for their bookshelves and their shots. So I am thrilled to welcome my friend and miniaturists and craftsperson Sky Burkson to Influence. Welcome, Sky. Hello.
That is great. What a great... You really have a knack for properly introducing someone, so they just they think they're coming in one way, and instead it's a complete right turn.
Is that? Some might say that's not hospitable for you want to make your guests comfortable.
I think
you like
that's
it.
Great.
Okay.
I feel completely untethered now from the stress of it, because now I'm reliving that day.
Okay. Oh, yes.
away from you while you're working and slicing through my hand.
Do you recall what actually, like, what did you do to yourself? What was that?
Okay. Squeamish warning.
Yes. Trigger warning. Yes.
So
thank you.
just don't listen to the next little bit if you're at all squeamish about details. Because what I did was I was fixing. I had made the new headboards for your daughter's bed.
Correct.
And I was putting the rails on them. I think you had rails. Oh no, I made rails.
I think I think we got the headboard from a family member, and you were making rails to attach it to the existing bed.
That's what it was.
That right?
I was putting the boards together with rails.
Yeah.
And so you needed the support pieces to go span from one rail to the other across the bed. And I cut them like a half inch too long. So I was literally taking a blade and cutting, because I didn't bring any saws. I was like, well, it's soft pine. I'll just cut through it. It's not that bad. And I just did the dumbest thing. I have a great record with sharp objects not cutting into my hands. I have a fantastic record for working with them all the time. And that day,
you have made your living in a legit shop fabricating legit.
Yeah,
wood
I'm very
and steel.
proud of the lack of accident with sharp objects.
You're not an amateur, is what I would say here.
Sure, yeah, I'm proud of that. And that day was a standout as well as a reminder because I just did the dumbest thing and I sliced right through my I don't know what they call it, the exterior tendon on my thumb.
Okay, right.
97% of the way through.
Whoa, really?
I don't know if I told you that part, is that's what happened. And for the next few months, I basically had a thumb that could only do this far. Sorry, audio viewers. I could only go this far for a few months before I could finally start to pull to the full hitchhiker's thumb.
Okay.
But that was, so I cut my thumb and I remember going, oh my God, that was a real one. And looking down and be like, ooh, I thought it was bone was that I was saying.
No.
It was not. It was not. And I remember hobbling over to your bathroom and being like, okay, so don't bleed on anything. I did a great job not bleeding on anything, by the way.
Look, you don't live nearby, so you were not. You've never hung out at the house for an extended period of time. So the fact that you found bandages and
I was
didn't bleed on anything.
Yeah, scrambling through the child lock bathroom, where's? And I was like, okay, there's no bandages. I'm just gonna take some packing tape and some toilet paper and basically wrap it all the way around.
Wait, so you didn't even find bandages? You were just
no, there was no.
Wow.
I couldn't find the bandages, and I was like. Well, I know that Matt's downstairs working right now on something. I'm pretty close to finishing. Why don't I just finish cutting this?
You finished the job while you were bleeding out.
Yeah. By the way, I've told this story in detail to so many people, and the reaction every time is, "You're stupid."
Yes.
Not just the cutting into it, but all of the decisions that were made after were dumb. They were just straight dumb.
Yes.
And irresponsible. And I love it that I've made it through that alive.
But then did you just drive home? Or you went to an urgent care nearby?
No, because you helped me I got in my car and you drove in front to get me to the urgent care.
Okay, yes. Oh my God, yes.
And then when I got there, first of all, they unpacked it. They looked at it and they went, oh, so you severed your tendon. And I was so high on adrenaline from that whole situation that as soon as they told me that, I fainted on the table. And 10, I woke up to 10,
oh my God,
dudes around me, putting ice compresses on my chest and being like, whoa, what just happened? They're like, you fainted like nobody's business, dude.
How long were you out?
Do you know? 15 minutes probably or something.
Man, shit.
I was out.
Oh my God.
So all that adrenaline had carried me through finishing the job, cleaning up what little blood I did spill, speaking to you. I remember speaking very plainly. I was like, so I have great news and I have very bad news. Your bed's done, but I think I need to go see somebody.
That I remember very vividly. Fuck.
And then I had to wait at the, or they were like, we'll call a plastic surgeon and you'll go over there and they'll stitch your tendon up. And when I got there,
I should have muted you while you told me this story because I'm getting squeamish just hearing.
Oh
this
yeah. Don't think about it too much. But know that when I spoke to when I went to the plastic surgeon and he was starting to do his work, I get squeamish too, and I was like, I'm just gonna look. My hand's over here.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna look at that painting on the wall over there while you do whatever. I can't think that you're even doing something right there.
Can you put a movie on while you sew my hand back together? Because I can't be a part of this.
Well, he said, this is another part of me going, I'm so proud of my blade work, by the way, is that he was like, this is one of the cleanest cuts I've ever seen. And I said, thank you. I keep my blade sharp.
I use the best tools.
And I work diligently at it. So
yes, this is the story you tell at Thanksgiving. And
yeah. And everybody goes, stop telling the story. We're sick of hearing the story. Stop telling it.
Talking about this. Okay.
Anyways, that's in the past.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's pre-COVID, so that's 10,000 years ago at least. When you are not slicing your hand open in my daughter's bedroom, what do you... When people say, hey, nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? What do you say? How do you explain it to people?
That I make... There's the pretentious version that I like to say when I'm speaking to someone that I don't know is that I go, well, I explore digital environments and then I make them out of paper in miniature. I make miniatures out of paper, primarily. And then I like to clean it up by saying that's the very highfalutin version of I make video game miniatures. Mm-hmm. And there you go.
But like, if grandma asks you that, Aunt Uncle John or Aunt Judy, do they understand what that even means? What's a video game miniature? You know what I mean?
Well, I'd probably clean up by saying like, I make Mario's castle small out of paper.
Great.
I know Mario.
I know that guy.
And I think there's a castle. He probably deals with castles.
Sure.
I'd probably say that. But most people aren't interested after a certain point. They're like, oh, you just make art. And that's fine.
Which is wild to me. Other people on the show have said that because this is my first question for all my guests. And people are like, I tell them, but then they're like, okay, well, you make TikToks. Okay, whatever. And then they just, it's like, if I met, because who do you meet in your life? Oh, I'm a teacher. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. Like, okay, those are interesting intellectual jobs. But if I met an artist at the PTA meeting, I'd be like, whoa, that's so, how do you make a living? What do you do? How do you work? I'd be so curious. It's funny to me that people are like, artist, and they walk away.
I mean, I sort of feel like that's the same thing when it would be like, if you're not aligned towards creative, you're not going to be like how, I want to know everything about how what you do can function at all.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point.
Where it's like, I understand how a plumber gets work, but I would have no interest in being like, tell me all about how you do what you do.
Right. How thick
Except for now
pipes?
Owning a home, I'm like, I might need to be like, how do you do that? Because I got to fix some stuff. But I don't really care about what you're talking about. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Just, I don't think you want to hear me talk about cutting paper.
Art is cool. If someone was like, I make movies. Like we have a family friend who was just over for Christmas Eve, and we see them occasionally, and we just love them. And he's literally a movie producer, and he's like has a list on his phone of like, I got to watch these movies because I'm a member of the Academy. Not in a pretentious way. He's the nicest, most wonderful guy. But I'm like,
it's your job.
This is such your job is to watch movies so you can vote at the Academy Awards. You're the coolest person, dude. I want to know everything. Anyway.
Yeah, it is interesting, like how that becomes some strange version of the job that they do.
Well, so speaking of that, this is what you do now, but bring us back. I don't know, your love of video games in tandem with how did you become an artist, even as a kid or a teenager? Like, what was your path toward like, well, I'm going to be making stuff. This is my thing that I have to do.
Yeah. It's sort of like two strings of interests, like running parallel with each other. And at times it was like, oh yeah, I can mesh them together for a moment. But that's for me. Like as a kid, it was like for me. Like I remember as a kid, I've always played video games and I've always drawn. So they've always been there the whole time. Mm-hmm. I do remember as a kid drawing, like if I my first, I had a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo, a Sega. There was an Atari, which I did not like playing. It's just like right before I have an interest in what a video game is where the Atari
I
fits.
think we're roughly the same age. And I'm curious, like, do you recall, like, what was your first exposure to games? What was the first moment?
I don't have that's the first time. Like, the first thing I can remember was playing, like, Mario 3 in the basement. Like, for as long as I can remember, there was always a video game there, and I was always playing it.
Because your parents had it, or you have siblings? Where did it come from?
I had 3 older siblings.
Got it.
My dad is also a computer engineer, and so he's always had some interest in it. It was more so like with PCs, and a lover of pop culture, and like I only recently now, as a dad, building and getting toys for my kids, can start to see like my dad loved getting us toys because he got to play with them too 100%. And be like, Megazord is fucking cool. What a cool toy. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I get to build these too. So he's always been there as like, oh, I love these things. My mom was a teacher and like a preschool teacher. And then my older brothers and sisters had the NES and the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, which they just left when they moved out. They were like 16 and 18 when I was born.
Wow. Oh wow, much older.
There's like a big gap.
That's a huge gap. Did they go on to creative jobs? I'm curious if they ever went into science or creative.
Everybody played soccer.
Yeah.
And then they all went on to just sort of like your run of the mill sort of jobs. Like I think 2 of them work at Comcast, and then another one went to the Navy and he lived on submarines for most of his time.
But their generation, like you're the same generation, but like 16 years is massive, especially when it comes to technology. So they were already preteens and teens when video games came into the home, and you were born with an NES in your crib, basically, and that's a major difference.
I was very lucky that like there it was right there, and I had like a not just a decent collection of like library of games to explore, but like a wide array of games to play and find out about. So that was always there. And then I was always drawing, and my parents were always supportive of that. Like I never ran out of crayons or markers or anything or paper. It was like, always there. And then, and I always liked making things as a kid. I remember making like really, really bad presents for my parents as a kid. That was just trash glued together, and thinking they were like early model. When I think about it now, I'm like, that was like a model, but I didn't know what it was that I was doing.
How old?
Like I used to make
Is this like 5, 7 years old kind of thing?
Sure. Like whenever 5, 7, it would be like, oh, I want to make them something. And then I'd make like a model, but it was like old cardboard that I found with something else glued. I just found a thing, glued it together, and then gave it to them. And
I would love
they probably
if
were
my
like,
kids.
"Oh, this is great."
Yes, I would love if my kids made me custom stuff. Occasionally, but they're not. They're not as crafty as you were as a kid. You know what I mean?
I was gluing trash together, so
love it.
I don't know, but yeah. So those ran like side to side. Like the other thing I was going to say is that I remember like the N64 was the first console. The N64 and PlayStation were the first ones. That were like they were going to be my consoles because those other ones were my older brothers and sisters.
Meaning they came out, they were released at a time when you as a kid were like, "Oh, this is coming to. I'm getting this. It's here."
Yeah,
for
this is the next
audio
thing.
For audio only listeners, Sky's wearing an N64 T-shirt, which is excellent.
Yeah. So I remember as a kid drawing, I would like get the new Nintendo Power and then see what games were coming out.
Okay.
And then draw a picture for my mom of whatever the next game was that was coming out.
Yes.
And then like I could depend on, this next Christmas, I'm going to get Yoshi's Story because I drew her a picture of some Yoshis.
Sweet.
So it was always intertwined up until a
Mhm.
point, and then it was like they're just these two different things, but they, you can't help but like take inspiration from something like or reference it. Like it's impossible now as an adult not to like see something happen and be like, oh, that's like, I don't know, something from whatever. So
Well, because we're so immersed in the culture and the timeline of games and how they're
yeah,
interconnected to each other in the culture, and so you see it
yeah,
all over, especially because it's the biggest media industry currently happening.
right,
I
yeah.
believe it dwarfs movies and television in terms of like scale and budgets right
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah. So there was that, and then like I think it could just be said that I was I don't know. I jumped forward to like high school. I got into theater,
Yeah, that was my next question.
and
Yeah.
I remember my high school mentors saying, "Hey, you love art, you love drawing, you love painting, you love building. There's a natural sort of job title you can go for
Mm-hmm.
that it ties itself into theater and go be a set designer."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, that's perfect for me!" Like I started
When you
reading up
said you
about
got
it.
involved in theater in high school, was this entirely backstage, or did
It
you
was
have?
backstage, and then I slowly like started doing stuff on stage, so I started
Mm-hmm.
performing more.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like loved all theater at that point. I was a total
Yes.
theater kid in high
Yep.
school, and then going home and playing whatever video game, and then coming back to the theater, like going back and forth
Great.
with those.
Living the
And
dream,
then
as
so
I
I,
like to call it.
what was that?
Living the dream.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, um, and then I went to college. I went to one school. I chose one school, and I went to one school after a year. I did like an internship for a year at Curious Theater Company in Denver,
Mm-hmm.
and they were amazing. I was just a backstage hand there. And then after that year, I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I was going to go learn set design.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to go from there to become a great set designer. I moved to New York after that. Um, and I was doing set design there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first mediums that you sort of cut your teeth on when you're learning the medium is model making.
Okay.
You got to learn how to make models of the sets that want to be built,
I see.
so
Okay.
that they can physically make sense. You can communicate to both shop, and you can communicate to the directors and the rest of the creative team and everybody involved. Like, hey, this is what the set's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I learned how to work with foam core, and it was really like any material, but I would say the material used most often, at least from what I experienced, was paper all the time. Was layering papers, figuring out how to cut out
For the
doors
models, for the set models. Interesting. Okay.
Not making not making the sets, but for making the models, was
Interesting.
learning how to work with paper and foam core to create whatever set.
For that work, is it like AutoCAD to physical model to set?
It could be. Yeah,
Okay.
you learn when I went to school, that was sort of like a start of a break where the software, the digital software, was really starting to show off what it could do a little more. And I remember like the years after I graduated, like seeing more and more people using exclusively software in their work because it made sense. It's, there's no debris from it. There's nothing that you're going to like, there's really no like physical waste from it besides the power consumption.
You would design the model in software and show it to the director before you even make anything physical.
Yeah, somewhat. You would draft it. There's a few mediums in set design. There's drafting, there's model making, there's conceptual research, there's those are sort of like the key ones. And then through those you learn just basics like painting and form and all that sort of stuff. But drafting is the big one. Usually you're drafting, and what I learned when I was in school was hand drafting. I loved hand drafting, using just rulers and paper and figuring out how to create these elevations and ground plans, and then take those elevations and ground plans and then photocopy them or redraw them and then start to cut them out of paper and then make the physical model, which of course now we have all sorts of software where you can draft it all up the same way You don't have to get the paper and and pen and pencil and out and do all that sort of stuff. You just draw it up, and then you can extrude pieces, and you get a 3D model. You create renderings from that. Then you can show the director now. It's way easier now.
But you still do a lot of hand drawing, is that right? For what you do these days?
Well, I fortunately was my student version of the software I was using has finally caught up with me. And in the past year, I have moved completely towards hand drawn everything.
Yeah.
So, and that was sort of like, in the past few years, I have started to be like, I do not like working on the computer to make the thing. I don't like doing it at all. I have so much more respect for being able to figure out how to make it just right on the table.
Yeah.
I had, when I moved from college up to New York, and I began working for these 3 designers, because when you're getting your start set design wise as an actual career, you're probably going to be an assistant to some designers above you.
Right.
And I fortunately was great at model making at the time, and I got a great recommendation for only one guy, and he was fantastic. Through him, he was working at the same creative collective called Wingspace, and I got connected to 2 other designers there.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically became their go-to model maker for everything for the 5 years that I was living in Brooklyn.
Right. But this is like off Broadway and Broadway productions now. Once you get to New York,
were
right?
all regional and off Broadway. Regional meaning like higher tier theaters across the country.
Yeah,
and then off Broadway mostly. One of the, I remember working on Nerds the Musical, making the model for that one. For the first designer, his name is Lee Savage. He's a fantastic designer. And he got his big break. I remember helping him with the first design when it was regional, and then it got picked up to go to Broadway.
Okay.
And that went through it was an unfortunate situation.
I don't remember this show, Nerds.
Yeah, I think it finally went up a few years later, because when it first went to Broadway, it was it got caught up in a really bad producer scandal.
Okay.
And it died.
Yeah.
And the sets were all built.
Wow.
It was just about to go into its on stage rehearsals of some sort. And basically the story came out that the producers were like, we have no more money. Bye. And it died.
Wow.
Which was so sad. It was super frustrating for everybody financially. Yeah. But then it was also seeing.
It was a good show. People believed in it.
I think. I don't know. Yeah. I also never went to any shows. I was just the model maker.
I mean, but you should
over the course of time working on it, I was just I can't stand theater anymore. I can't stand watching it. A show's got to be so good. You watch so many, when you're invested in it, it's do you see so much bad theater?
Bad
and
stuff.
I'm such a homebody that I'm I don't want to leave if it's bad.
That's an interesting.
Please don't make me go to
that's
a bad
an interesting
show.
thing. Well, and then this is at least I'm speaking only for myself. As you get older, it's kind of this whole do what you love thing can backfire, or there are downsides to a lot of it. Some that you don't foresee as in your youth, I guess. I suppose is one way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone through that 2 or 3 times now, and it's just giving me so many perspectives on other creatives like you and whoever else, where I'm just we're always trying a new thing, and it's tough because you try to get the thing that sticks, and it's sort of trying a new medium every time. Is this the thing that's going to stick? Or and it isn't until you go oh, I just shouldn't care about the sticking part. Just does it feel okay?
Right. Yeah.
I guess I can clean up this whole long story.
That you need to make money
exactly.
And all that stuff.
You've got so many stresses on top that are based upon the structures around us.
Right.
And we clearly can't change those structures after this past year. Anything good, we're just not going to be able to fix that.
Century, but yes.
Yeah. So all you can really do is just be okay, let me just focus on this part.
Yes.
Just this one thing, and then get that right.
Yep.
So,
but briefly before you go on, the pencils that you use you're doing everything by hand. Do
yeah.
you pay like a licensing fee or a subscription fee to Adobe to like use pencils, or I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Because I freaking love that. Like,
I was about to be so mad. I was like, what is happening in Adobe now?
Hell?
What the fuck are they doing now?
I mean, give it 2 years.
Give it yeah, exactly. You were really getting me. Oh my God.
When your student license runs out and you've used a tool for a decade, it's like, oh, I guess I gotta pay a subscription for software, which never was a thing, but now,
the drafting software. Expensive. I was like, okay, my student software ran out. Okay, how much is it to actually do this? Just for a perpetual license? They don't exist anymore.
$800 a month.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Yeah. It's so crazy. And I was well, then you know what? This lines up. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to draft on the computer. I'm going to do it by hand. I know I can do it because we have been doing it for eons as human beings.
So then do you feel worried? You occupy a very specific niche because you operate, you do what you want, and you are making things directly for your own customers now. But like, I worry about this. Yeah. And so like in 10 years, if you need to or want to work in a set design shop, or you want to build stuff or whatever, and you're like, what's your qualifications, sir? And you're like, well, I got this pencil. And they're like, LOL, old man. Like, what is that a fear? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's one of the many, many fears, is being like obsolete in some capacity. But I think that I've had a good run in the past few years of looking at the obsolete version, or the like less trodden version of working in a medium already, that being miniatures, that's already so like expansive, and like there's so many like standout artists that are just like, oh, that's that guy and that's that guy, and they do this, and this guy over here is doing this, lady over here is doing this thing. Yeah. Is that like, to see all that and then feel rewarded by being like, I'm not going to even try to do those things because, one, that doesn't feel good. I should say that like two years ago, I had been doing like models as my own thing after like deciding to be a set designer, going to New York, being like, I don't want to be a set designer anymore. I hate this. I'm not good at the diplomacy part of it. I'm way too contumacious as a human being. I get really grumpy when someone tells me what to do. So I don't think I'm good at this, and it's only making everybody's lives worse for me to keep doing this job that is like creative. It's a creative job, right? And it's a team environment, and I'm there just being a sourpuss. So nobody's going to be benefited by me continuing to do this when I like the making part of all of this, models or sets. And I went and did sets for a while, which is where I decided to go slice through my hand at your house. I'm going to also make a little bed, and I'm going to do some of this or that with a buddy. And
some of that stuff went to Broadway, though, because I remember another friend is a notable Broadway actor, and we went to see him in Beetlejuice the musical. Which, would we have bought tickets for Beetlejuice the musical? Probably not, but like it was great. He was great. Yeah. We all had a great time, and I don't know why I knew this, but you were like, "Oh yeah, I built the snack bar or the concession stand for Beetlejuice," which was very elaborate. It wasn't just a stand. It was like had all the colors and the stripes and everything from the show.
We had a good run. The shop that I ran with my buddy, it was just the two of us, just a brief one. My buddy, Nate Frieswick, beautiful human being. We ran that shop for 8 years. It was like 5 in an actual, where we actually had a shop. Before that, it was like any closet with tools will work. Right. And then like, I thought that I wanted to keep building. And over the course of that one, I realized like, oh no, I actually can't stand doing this as a job either. But I do like the miniatures still. I do like model making. Yeah. And that's where I started to transition out of that. And I was doing like just whatever I wanted to do as miniatures, but I was also angling towards like an online presence some sort of personality being, I don't know, a personality who makes models. And that was stupid. That didn't work either.
Oh, okay. But
I gained something.
You were observing others doing that. That's what you were alluding to before?
Yeah, there was I would say the problem that I was having with that was just the part where you're trying to be a personality on the internet, trying to also, I was like, but the thing I'm doing is I'm making models.
Yeah.
I was a new dad at that time too. And so I was a stay-at-home dad. So I was juggling a lot of time just basically being very solitary with my kid. But then you have those moments when they're very small where you're just sitting,
right,
and you can't help but have the phone, and you're looking at what everybody else is doing, and you're constantly saying, I don't have enough time because I'm a dad, and I also need to work at night to do these things.
Yeah.
And it was becoming a real struggle to balance, not necessarily the dad part, but the part where you're like, I don't have enough time, and the thing that I like doing takes all this time.
Very time intensive.
And it takes so much time. And how am I supposed to match the speed of people who are doing something similar with like faster processes?
Yeah.
And just being like, how do you get over this hump that like, that we as a society has constantly said, like, you need to make things faster, more, and cheaper.
Yeah.
And I finally hit a point like 2-3 years into that where I was like, well, why am I fighting that part of it? And I started to have these, like, I was thinking back to being in the shop with my buddy Nate, and the one fight that we would have, that was a legitimate, like, he's coming at it from a legitimate standpoint, and I am coming at it, was he wanted to make sure to get the project to 120%, no matter how much time it took. And I was always like, yeah, but we got to finish the job so that we can get the new job. We have to meet a deadline.
It's funny that you were the one saying that, because it's a bit on the other side of how you operate right now.
Yeah. I heard him because he would always say, well, things take time. And since then, like, I think it was 2022, I was working on, I basically was like, I'm going to make something, Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this model that I'm making, and I realize that the way I've made it, I need to cut like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of individual little stones and then apply them individually. And I couldn't figure out a way to like create a sheet of them easy so that I can just, and I was like, this is going to take me for fucking ever. How am I supposed to do this? Like, I need to move on. And I started being like, why? His voice just like in my head, like, things take time. It's okay. They just take time. Just do it. And just being like, I guess I'm applying all these stones by hand. And I did. And it took me like days of cutting and applying and cutting and applying until I was like, this looks so good. And it feels so good. And then like the response to that was like, it's like the first miniature that actually saw any response online where it was like, that's amazing. Look at that. That's crazy.
You had been posting stuff earlier, but it wasn't quite hitting. But then the one that took a lot of time and had so much detail was the one that people were like, whoa. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
There was all sorts of other reasons too, but like, that was like, if it was not responded to that way, I probably would have been like, well, that wasn't worth it.
Totally. I know. That's
I might have taken the wrong lesson from it.
The wrong lesson. Yes. Oh my God, you're right.
Fortunately, there was a good response. Because since then, that has been the go-to. Like all that year, I had basically hit a point where I didn't have to meet like super big bills at the time.
Okay.
Things were a little easier, so I could just be like, hey, that one took a month. It's not a great model. I still look at it like, that was not a great model.
Okay.
I've done way better since then. But if I hadn't done that one and just learned the lesson, like, just let it take the time it needs. You need to get the thing right. Then I probably would have gone back to being like, well, I got to quickly get this one done and do this other one really fast.
It's a pivotal moment because I've experienced this, and many people who've been a guest on the show have experienced this. Of like, we often laugh of like the thing that took 3 months and I poured my life and soul into it got like 1,000 views, and then this shitty TikTok I took of a bird is like 10 million views, and the internet's so weird like that. But you are saying the opposite of that, where it's like the time and the effort does pay off, and I believe in that too. But the internet is weird when it comes to this stuff.
I completely agree with that mentality. Now, having done two years of just every project is let it take the time it's going to take, meet the deadline, but make sure to block that time out and get it right. I've like the biggest ones I've done have definitely had way less impact and engagement than some of the smaller ones I've done in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. And I'm not losing any heart about it, because the ones that because I love all of them now that I do. I really enjoy them. I find something that was cool or new or different or a lesson to be learned to move on to the next one. Like they all have something. And I just look at that as part of like, if I'm an artist, everything I make has a timestamp on it that is unique in its own way every time I make a new one. And if you ask me, like, I get requests for like, oh, could I get that model? Can you make that one for me again? And I'm like, I say no, but I can also see something cool about, hey, what if I reapproach that? Now, that person who has that one, even if I try to remake it, they're going to see hallmarks of me in 2022.
Yes.
Whereas this person is going to see me in 2025.
Painters and sculptors have been doing that for centuries. There are like many famous works have been like iterative, and I have this Rembrandt and you have that Rembrandt, and they're sort of similar, but so I think there's a place for it if you want to do it.
Yeah. So,
so we've
arrived. That might be
arrived
the full journey.
So we've arrived at where you are today, roughly. So for video viewers, I'm going to put some examples of Sky's work on the screen as we discuss them. For audio listeners, why don't you explain some of the set pieces and environments that you've designed from the various games, and how you why you chose them or what they mean to you, stuff like that.
Where do you want me to start?
Wherever you want. I'll add the images as we go. I'll add them in later.
Okay. I mean, the first one that like sent things off and is still I have two favorites, which is the one from 2020, I think.
Okay.
2019, because it was just before.
Year. Oh, okay. 2019
just before.
Sucked, but 2020, that was, I love that one.
Yeah. 2019, I made, this was before I started going, I need to take some time with the things I'm making.
Yeah.
But this one I did take some time, which is that I made The Quilt of Doors. It was a series that I was hoping to do over and over and over again, which is from, I basically there's an artist that I love. His handle is what_the_hell. His artist name is Ryan Thomas Monahan, and he's like a granddaddy of miniatures on the internet.
Okay.
If you've ever seen one, you've probably seen something that he did. Cool. And he does a series he calls Bellevue Doors. And most miniaturists like to make a nice doorway. Whenever someone asks me like, hey, how do I get into this? I'm usually like, well, there's two things you can do. You either pick a cool door and make that, or you make a dumpster. They both, I feel like, are great.
That's a good texture.
There's textures. There's ways to make them unique. It's a great chance to learn how to both layer and figure out how to work in 3D.
Okay.
And he does these Bellevue doors. And so then lots of people do doorways. And I was like, well, I was like really high on Resident Evil at the time. And I was like, if you know anything about Resident Evil, the originals, the door animations are there and you have to interact with them.
Okay.
And you get very used to watching doors open and doors open and doors open. And I was like, I'm going to make all 55 unique doors. There's like 200 some animations in the game, just door animations. Every time you walk out of a room and into a new room, there's the suspense of, just a door in a black void, and it creaks open, and then you walk through the door, and then the fixed camera for the next, and oh no, there's a zombie right there or something. And I just love that. Lots of people are like, it's so boring. I'm like, I love that detail. It's so obnoxious and it's in your face.
Yeah.
And there's like 200 of these animations in the game, but there's only 55 unique doors because they've had to flip the door and reverse it for when you come out of that room.
Okay.
Or sometimes those doors are double doors now, but over here you get one of that door. And so I took 55 of them and I made every unique door and I put them in a big frame. And it's just like the coolest thing.
Love it.
All those doors. Just some great homage to the door animations in Resident Evil.
These it's just a specific detail that
just one thing
90% of people are walking through and never thinking about again. But here it is. And that I mean, this is what art is, you know.
Yeah.
Extracting these details.
So that's one. I made those out of paper. Most of them, some of them, there's like fences and gates, and one of my favorites is the Lisa door, or gate, and it's like this beautiful green gate with a little emblem on it that you get to go down and you go fight Lisa. It's great. Anyways, that's one of my favorites. The other one of my favorites is the Hunter's Dream from Bloodborne, which is probably where I think most people said, like, who's that guy over there doing stuff?
Right.
What can I describe about that? It's just beautiful. It's like the return world you go to in Bloodborne.
Okay.
You go to you're in the waking nightmare of Yharnam, and you're fighting all these awful creatures, and then whenever you go to a lamppost, you go back to the Hunter's Dream, which is this nice little area, beautiful hunter's workshop up on a hill, very like curvy structure wrapping out of it, lots of like spindly trees. The whole game is very gothic and dark and brooding and eldritch. So there's like this,
but this piece is not a specific vignette. It is the entire area.
Yeah, that was one where I went like, we're gonna do that straight, and that one was very popular. But it's also just for me. I like it because I feel like I take a lot of chances doing some things by also being like, I'm gonna do this mostly out of paper, and I've embraced the parts where I can't push paper that far, but I'll get it close, and I'll just sort of embrace how the paper does something.
Right. Yes.
And
it doesn't look exactly the way you intended, but it has a character of paper that is native to the project, I suppose. Yeah,
it's that. It's also like sometimes it's an accuracy thing. Like in the game, it looks like this.
Right.
I can't get paper that close, but I think it sort of gives it something that it is. When you know that what the medium is, you go, that's very nice.
Right.
And this is also like the first one where I made a figure too. I made the doll that sort of greets you when you come back to the Hunter's Dream. So
an analogy maybe for audio listeners is like a Monet painting with the splotches and the impressionism doesn't look like a photograph, but it's very clear. You instantly understand and are moved by what it is, what you're seeing, which is people picnicking in a meadow. But the paint itself does not look exactly like a photograph would. And Sky's work has a similar feeling where if you zoom really close into it, you're seeing the paper, but when you zoom out, you're like, this is a I mean, it is a sculpture, but like it looks like wood and stone and water, etc.
Yeah. And you'll catch areas where I've been like, I'm just going to let that sort of wabi-sabi. It just is that now. And the more I do this, the more I just go like, it's not necessarily that I don't care. It's more like, I like that it just sort of feathers out into paper on this here. Especially when they get really intricate and detailed. And then I can just like let something just be like, and like, I love impressionism. I love figuring out ways to let the medium just do that for me, is be like, That's sweet that it just sort of cracked right there and the paper did a thing. Like I love using it to make a real detail, and I also love using it just to let it be.
Yes.
So those
Creative
are sort of my
people,
two favorites. Yeah,
for sure. Creative people listening will understand what you mean of like, I didn't intend for this thing to happen, but because it randomly happened, I love it and it's part of the work. I never would have thought to do this or that, but now it's here and it's part of it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about more of the sculptures in a moment. I am very fascinated by your process of exploring these three-dimensional environments to then recreate them. We have to take a break, but before we take a break, I must try to stump you with some video game trivia. It's a multiple choice question. Are you prepared?
Easy to stump me. I am prepared.
See, it was either, this question will be easy, or it's easy to stump.
No.
Look, you're going to have a 1 in 3 shot, but I thought this trivia was pretty interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. This week, we are talking about, creating beautiful things from our favorite video games, and today's trivia is about creating beautiful video games, question mark, from our favorite 80s bands? Huh?
Okay.
Way before Guitar Hero and Rock Band, there was an Atari 2600, your favorite console, video game released in the early 80s based on the life and times of one of that era's most popular bands or musical artists. I'm going to read you the plot description from 3 Atari 2600 games. One of these is the real description from the manual of that game. The other 2 I made up. So you're looking for the real 80s game based on an Atari 2600 game based on an 80s band.
I'm looking for the real description or the real game?
One. Both.
Oh, no.
So 2 of these are fake, and with fake descriptions, one of them is the real deal.
Oh, God.
And this is real text from the
I'm going with no confidence right now.
Is it A, the game is Journey Escape? The blurb is, you're on the road with Journey, one of the world's hottest rock groups. A spectacular performance has just ended. Now it's up to you to guide each Journey band member past hordes of love-crazed groupies, sneaky photographers, and shifty-eyed promoters to the safety of the Journey Escape vehicle in time to make the next concert. That is choice A, Atari 2600 game called Journey Escape.
Okay.
Or is it choice B, Hungry Like the Wolf? Calling all Duran Duran fans, he's on the hunt and he's after you. Can you plot your escape from the big bad wolf without tripping the wire? Push traffic cones and trigger traps in this adventure puzzle game complete with 2 rockin' tracks from Duran Duran's hit album. That is choice B. Or is it C, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars? Can you save Earth from apocalypse? Take on the role of Alien, Ziggy Stardust, Earth's last hope in the fight against evil Martian invaders. Use the power of music to banish your foes and collect star bangles for the highest score. You're the Starman now. That is choice C. Which of these is a real Atari 2600 game released in the early 1980s? He's perplexed.
Still in the box. I have a box of them right over there.
Do not cheat.
I don't think my siblings had this one. I don't think it's Ziggy Stardust. Okay. I think it's Journey.
Okay.
I was like about to be like, it's not Journey, but after hearing the others, it's got to be one of those 2.
Okay. You're thinking it's either Journey or Duran Duran.
Yeah, but I think it's Journey.
Okay.
I think Journey would do this. I don't think Duran Duran would do this. I also don't think that David Bowie would do this with Ziggy Stardust.
Okay. Yep. That's fair. Okay. He's locking in the answer. All right. He's going with Journey Escape, helping the band push through photographers and fans. We will find out if he chose the correct answer after this important break.
Oh, God.
It be that time again. Time to thank all the generous people who subscribe to the Patreon over at patreon.com/influencepod, who support financially or for free, and those beautiful people who like and subscribe, smashing buttons left and right, including the executive producers who contribute $10 or more every month to make this show possible. They are Dominic Kerr, Bowie Barks, Duran, and of course, William. Thank you so much to everyone who has been with the show for so long, and newcomers alike who support in any way that you can. Suggesting the show to someone that you think would enjoy it is arguably the best thing you could do for a program like this. I really appreciate the support. And now we got to find out which 80s band made a video game. Did Sky get the trivia question right? We have returned with Sky Burkson, miniaturist, artist, craftsperson, internet superstar extraordinaire.
I'm just a little guy.
He's just a little guy. He's a mini man making. Whoa! I have no.
Oh yeah.
But what if you were a tiny guy, and everything you were making was full size?
No thanks. Wouldn't do it. Because then I'd be dealing with fabrication again. I don't want to go back.
Okay, you can't go back. We're talking miniatures, we're talking video games, and before the break, I asked Sky which 80s band or artist made an Atari. Well, the band didn't make it, but which hit album led to Atari 2600 game? I'm
gonna grab the box. Hold on.
Ah, shit. You
go ahead.
If you find the game in the box, then
here's my diaper box.
Great. For audio listeners, Sky has
Atari games
diaper box. It's a pull-ups box with a baby on it, and inside is Atari 2600 games. Apparently.
Yeah.
And are you opening this because you think that you have?
I just want to confirm that they don't have whatever this is.
Ah, okay.
Journey, I will say Journey sounds like an Atari game that you would be like, oh, it's just a game. It's not a band game.
Yes, you're right.
Should I like a wolf does too.
Do you want to look first, or am I giving you the answer while you crack this open?
You can tell me. You can just tell me.
Now, look, I always give guests a chance to change, but it sounds like you're very firm.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, your headphones are still on. You'll be able to hear this. Here is a clip from what is it? Classic Game Room. It's a YouTube channel that reviews old games. And here's a clip from the real game.
I knew it.
Don't stop believing that the Atari 2600 is awesome just because they don't make games like this for it anymore. Get ready to rock. It's Journey Escape.
Not only did they make a Journey Atari game based on Escape, which is their big album, which has Don't Stop Believin', I guess, but there was also an arcade game, like a cabinet.
Whoa!
And it's a different game, but they made 2 Journey video games in like 82 or 83.
Wow!
Do you have it in that box?
So far no. We're almost there. I got MASH, the video game.
MASH, the TV show.
Yeah. Let's see.
Right.
Spider-Man. I don't think I have E.T. though.
So E.T. is not as rare as we might think. And long ago, long-time listeners know that we interviewed a video game archaeologist very early in this show. No way.
I have it.
Pulled out. Bring it up to the camera so we can see that nice and close.
I have it.
He literally has Journey Escape for the Atari 2600. We did it.
Is the last cartridge in the box.
We did it. What a time
You wouldn't
to be
know.
alive.
Look at that. You would not know.
It's very unassuming. No, it doesn't. I mean, it looks like the band's art, but it doesn't necessarily feel like, oh, that's a Journey game.
I'm not a Journey fan. I don't know them that well. So if I looked at this, I'd be like, oh, okay. Fun game, it looks like.
100%.
But if I was a Journey fan, I would be like,
the same album art? Yeah. So funny. I have no
Mario Brothers. Look at that.
Yes. Not Super. Just regular Mario Brothers.
Just basic. All right.
And arcades. I have no nostalgia for 2600 either. And when I look back at those games, I'm like, these do not seem fun at all. But I do like the
that's
cartridges.
how I feel. Me too. I like the cartridges.
Yep.
I was supposed to give them back to my sister, but I was like, do you have an Atari? I don't think you have it.
Do anything with this? Are you going to display them?
So
when you make these beautiful sculptures, which I'm going to put more on screen here as we go, but
there they are.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. That's definitely appearing right now. You've told me about your process, and I'm really fascinated by it. So, like, you alluded to it earlier. Oh, let me hop over and do some research in the gaming corner. Like, you are playing the games and walking around in these castles and places to figure out how to make them. So, tell us more about that.
I could use Astera as a good example because Astera was humongous. That was for Egoraptor. That was for Aaron Hansen. He's like the original Game Grump.
Game Grumps.
Yeah. He found me because of the Hunter's Dream.
Yes.
He snagged it.
Right.
His comment
he bought
asking
Hunter's
to
Dream?
buy it.
Yes.
Yes. He commented on that photo I took of it and saying, "Can I buy this?" very publicly on Twitter, which then got that image way more attention.
Yes.
from that.
This is a very notable and long time old school video game YouTuber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Game Grumps.
Yeah. One of the first let's play a game YouTubers.
Yes.
So yeah, he noticed Hunter's Dream. I sold it to him, and then went and had. Then my wife had her daughter, like the next day, and I was like, "You're gonna have to wait until I can pack it up because my daughter's about to emerge into this world." So, and like a week later, it was packed up and on its way over.
And then he was like, "I want something else." How much for the daughter? No, just kidding. How much for the kid?
Put her in the box too, same size. But yeah, then he wanted Astera, and if you know anything about Monster Hunter World, which I don't play them, I played a little bit of a few of them on my own, and then was like, "Oh, it's on sale. Let me go check it out." And downloaded it, and immediately he was like, "I want the settlement of Astera, which is like hub world." And as soon as I loaded the game up and saw this place, I was like, "Holy shit!
Oh shit! This is gonna take months."
I was like, immediately I was like, "Yes, I want to do this for sure." Let me think about what this means, and I'll get back to you about that. Let me see if can I open up Steam real quick and just look at this?
Yeah.
Because I have an hour count on that. And it is almost exclusively based upon me when I was doing my research, basically booting up the game and then just walking around.
Okay, this is going to be fun. You ready? I'm going to pull it up as well. And I have played many, many hours of Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
You have played, quote unquote, this game, but only to walk around the hub world. Let's compare and see who has more hours in Monster Hunter World.
I'm going to bet it's you, but there is a caveat. There's that caveat.
I wish it was you. It would be way more fun.
Yeah. I have 47 hours logged onto Steam.
How do I see
playing this game?
That's a lot.
Is it a lot?
The store pay for just walking around and not hunting monsters. That's
I would say I have 5 hours of actual gameplay because I didn't play the game until after it was all over, and then my buddy and I played it, and then we realized that it wasn't as co-op friendly as we thought it might be.
Okay,
you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
Is that it is co-op, but it is a little bit less co-op friendly than we thought it might be.
Yes,
but of those 47 hours, 42 of them were spent with the game on my screen and like moving around and like, okay, take a screenshot of that. Okay, take a screenshot. And then like, I try to take like, if I can take screenshots, like on my PlayStation, if I, like PS4 has a good screenshot, everything modern has great screenshot capability now.
Especially if you have a photo mode in there, then that must be your dream come true.
Yeah, it's great if you have a photo mode, but the funny part is I'm not usually doing working from games that have a photo mode is the silly part. It's usually
Monster Hunter does not, to my knowledge,
no,
so that you had to
Bloodborne does not, like no Souls games,
quote unquote, like walk around and move around the environment. Yep.
Yeah. So usually it's me like typically like wiping out an area of enemies and then be like, okay, let's deep.
Right. You have to play in order to like actually move around. I'm just trying to find the game because I'm sorting by hours played and I'm not seeing it. But anyway, continue. I need to know how this compares.
Yeah, same. Yeah, usually I'm walking around an initial like run of the area taking screenshots. I just did Hemwick Charnel Lane, another Bloodborne, and that area to a more accurate degree as opposed to artistically, let's just do something fun with this idea. And that one was like, go through, wipe out all the enemies so that I can just take screenshots of all sorts of stuff. And even then, after like 2 or 3 passes of that, I'm still like sitting down and drafting out the plan of it and realizing like, I don't know what that fucking looks like. I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
And being like, well, okay, I guess I'll sit here with the controller.
Right.
And like, okay, draw that up over there. And
but then you've told me about and spoken publicly a little bit about like, there are places there are pieces of castles and worlds that you can't access and can't see because they may not even exist in the 3D space. So, but you are creating a fully 3-dimensional model. So you have to do something to make up for that stuff.
Yeah. You have to, my approach is usually just figure out what period details are around, what styles are around, and then sort of using our realities, period styles, and like helping to inform how maybe the artists. I usually grab like an art book too, by the way. So if something has an art book, I'll go look at the concept art either in the art book or I'll try to find some online.
The art book for the game.
For whatever game I'm investigating.
Yes.
And try to see, like, did the artist maybe draw the backside?
Yeah, that's
Is there a version?
That's interesting.
And it's sort of like using, like, when you investigate YouTubers or lore historians who are, like, very into explaining lore, and then they use cut content.
Yeah.
Is that they always sort of have, like, by the way, this is cut content. It was probably cut for a reason.
Right.
It may not be exactly what they are intending. And they might have removed this because it offsets some other piece of whatever going on. Right. So it's always like a funny balance of being like, do I trust the detail I'm informing on the backside that you can't ever see? And like Astera has many backsides that you'll never see. Hemwick Charnel Lane is like the Witch's Abode, which is like when you run through this area, there's this huge Witch's Abode at the very top, where you have a final boss fight inside and you fight the Witch of Hemwick.
Okay.
And it's this like gigantic fucking building that just like dominates the landscape. Every time you like look up, you see this like big building that just goes on forever. And that's one where it's usually like, it's a mix of 2 things happening that I have to come at it with, which is I'm informing a backside that you never see. There's plenty of people who are exploring these things and breaking the camera out of its boundary and seeing that. And that's also light cut content where it's like, okay, you never see it. So should I utilize this? I'm not sure
but if
I
it's
should.
there, if the model has it, just because you can't see it as a player, if you break the boundary, which for non-gamers means, maybe you could explain that.
Oh yeah. You're breaking the camera out of, you're breaking the player's view sight in some way, maybe not specifically the camera, but you're able to now move the camera towards an area around the backside and you can see something. Sometimes you couldn't see under a thing, so you didn't know if there was something underneath something the whole time. So there's all sorts of modders who can have these tools and they can just manipulate the whole thing. Not necessarily the data in there, just the camera that you can see things from. And that's very helpful.
Most players will never see that, but it's like if you gave your character a drone and then you flew the drone up to the castle that you can't actually climb up to, but you're flying the camera up there to see what's up
exactly.
there. And sometimes there's nothing, and sometimes it's like, oh wow, there's stuff up here that no one will ever see.
Yeah,
I love that shit. I think it's so cool.
Me too. I love seeing it too. I adopt the same mentality with it as cut content lore historians, or they're just like, it's cool to know these details, but we can't completely apply them. We have to still like piece logic together on this and say, does this make the most sense? Is this
right?
And yeah, so there's an infill that I was going to say that the Charnel Lane piece was huge. It was massive. It was like long. It took up my whole desk from end to end.
Wow. I didn't realize it was
and
that
I
big.
still had to look at this whole space. And when you look at it in game, it goes on much bigger than what I did. So there's a truncating sometimes too,
right?
Just to make the composition feel not necessarily just to like fit it on a shelf, but like if you get all that detail in there, like that's cool. But like, it sort of feels like fluff.
Yeah, it doesn't serve the piece. It serves accuracy, which is not always the goal.
When you can like honestly still capture that in some capacity by just squishing it just a little bit and still giving it some sort of atmospheric detail that's like, oh, that's still whatever feeling you get from that area that's missing now. You still have that here. Then I feel like it's fine if you just like chunk that down. But also it's like you could do whatever you want with a miniature. Like you can, I did Lanedell from Elden Ring.
Yep.
And that is a huge area. That one I really love for what we did with it, what like we came up with, because the request was originally, I would like to do Lanedell, but more specifically, I'd like an illuminated Erd tree as a miniature with Lanedell attached to it.
Yes.
And if you know Elden Ring, you know that the Erd tree is like this tree of life that you can literally see anywhere in the lands between, which is the world of Elden Ring.
And I really want to get there, and no matter how far I walk, I can't get there. And then I give up on Elden Ring. But that's another story. That's another podcast.
Not the only one. Yeah, how long we got. But as a miniature, the tricky part of that request was going, okay, so you want this massive tree and you want the already massive city that is being dwarfed by this huge tree. Mm-hmm. So what does a miniature of that look like? And what it became was an like excerpt of the tree, just a piece of it, still glowing, illuminated. So it still gave this impression like, hey, there's way more going on here, as well as a more like tastefully scaled Lanedell, where even if you captured Lanedell as it is in the game, Lanedell is the royal capital. So it's this massive sprawling city with like 7 different like environments inside of it, depending on where you're going. Like there's an underground sewer system, there's a shunning grounds under that sewer system, there's the central district, there's the upper district, there's the battle, the like arena, there's the bed chamber, there's all these like different environments in it. And we decided like we'll capture a little bit of the tree, and basically from that the rest of Lanedell will spill in, and we'll just capture these different regions and stitch them back together into this more tasteful miniature that will take up this much space. Because if you just do the tree, this Lanedell is going to look stupid because it's going to be so small.
Yep.
But if you do Lanedell as it is, you can't capture the whole tree because it's just going to be a tree.
It's almost it feels like perspective too, because when you're walking around in an environment, real life or virtual, you are on the ground looking out at something, and things are in the foreground, things are in the background, and that's what makes a photograph of a place beautiful. You're trying to create a photograph of a thing, but in 3 dimensions. And it's not going to look as good unless you're like looking at it, you're modifying in 3 dimensions, whereas a photographer would modify from their perspective. If that makes any sense at all,
it does. I think about this every time I'm drawing something. I learned there was something my college mentor always had me like drilled into my head about getting photographs of your work, which was. You just get one photograph. Like you can design the most elaborate whatever set you want. and you could take 70 photos of it from all sorts of different angles of so many different details. But if 69 of them are terrible and one of them is just perfect, that's all you need. Just one photo. And when I'm designing something, I'm always like, there have been miniatures where it's like, I can't fully convey, like Astera is very hard to convey from one image.
Yes.
But if I can still get one image, I'm a winner. So I'm going to draw this idea from an image where I'm like, just as a sketch, I always sketch things out just focusing on what is a unique version of the idea.
Yeah.
And from one angle where I'm like, that is a winner of an angle for this idea. Because when I get to the end of this process of making this thing, it took me 3 months or 1 month or 5 months. When it gets to that photo table, I can at least be like, land it where I drew the sketch at, get the photograph right, and you're good. Everything after that is icing. It's
really good advice, because the compulsion, the instinct is, this is so detailed and this is so big. I want to get a photo of this, and here's a little moment, and here, and I want to capture all of it for social media, and you do to a degree.
Yes.
But that it has to play, it has to speak from one vantage point. And that has that's the hero image, as we would say in the media business or whatever.
That was the one.
It's really good advice. I never thought of it like that.
Well, I always think of it too in regards to like what I responded to in like antithetical way towards what we expect to happen, which is you need to make things faster, you need to make more, you need to make them cheaper. I went, no, I'm going to make one thing that's going to take me for fucking ever. I'm going to just do that and I'll be happy with it. Is also, we are constantly focused on more video, more capturing every angle.
Right.
And I get so frustrated with that. I've got like so many ideas, like just do more video. And I'm always like, just shh. If I make something, you should be able to see it from one angle and be like, that's good. That's just good. That's all you need. That's all anybody who sees the work should be able to should respond with. It's just, that's good from one image, one great image.
I think what people are trying to tell you, and I agree with your point of view, and I understand what they're saying, is
it's internal, by the way.
For sure.
It's not other people. Well, they are other people.
Well,
but I'm also like fighting the like, gotta take more videos so that people can see more angles, get more angles. And like, get one. Just get one. Stick to it.
You don't need my advice, but I think what that voice is saying is like, photos don't go viral the way video goes viral. So while your audience loves you and is hyper engaged, and you have lots of people loving this work, a TikTok that shows the process from sketch to final in fast motion would go bananas on the internet, and you don't really do that very much, if at all. Yeah.
That said, I'm going to do video this year.
Well, that answers my, what's coming down the pipe. We're coming up on time here, but I have to ask. Well, Game Grumps Aaron, right? That's the gentleman's name? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So
he's great.
He seems lovely.
He's awesome.
He bought Bloodborne and then commissioned Astera from Monster Hunter World. Oh, sorry. 93 hours in Monster Hunter World. So just to clarify here for listeners, Sky has spent half of his game time he has spent half as much time just taking photographs of this world as I have playing the goddamn video game. That's how meticulous we are talking here in terms of
and I still got it wrong, so
okay, so he bought Astera, but then the most recent large piece is Bloodborne again. Is that correct?
Yeah, Hemwick Charnel Lane.
Yeah. Oh, that's Hemwick. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm showing it here, but this was commissioned by someone else very notable.
That was commissioned by Jacksepticeye, who got wind of me through there's been a few YouTubers. But they're the only ones who've commissioned so far. And I'm gonna get the rest.
Yeah, all of them. Get all of
I'm
them.
gonna assemble my infinity gauntlet of YouTubers I've made miniatures
what
for.
What would Video Game Donkey commission?
Oh
Probably
my
a
God.
Mario thing.
I would say I would
Mario
do an
64.
Animal Well thing for him.
Sure, that's
in
cute.
a heartbeat.
For sure.
Yeah. So Jacksepticeye did that, and that was great because when I love Bloodborne, many people love Bloodborne. It's the best Soulsborne game, and when he was talking to me about it, I asked him. I remember asking him about like, hey, which space do you want? He originally wanted 100 stream again. And I was like, no,
wow.
I don't want to do that again.
I'm not repeating, yeah.
Like that went to your buddy Ego Raptor. They're buddies. So why don't we do something where you get something different and all on its own?
Yeah.
Like this or this or this place. Like I always think of these very iconic and fully like spectacle pieces. And he suggested Hemwick, which is a very I'm now a huge Hemwick Charnel Lane fan after that. Made me feel like a huge Bloodborne tourist when he asked, because I was like, really? That place?
Yeah.
I would never expect that place.
Interesting.
But it really is like one of the more low-key, perfect Bloodborne areas.
Okay.
You think of so many, like when you play that game, you're like, oh, I think of the clock tower, and I think of this place.
These epic places. This is like a rundown backwater cemetery kind of situation.
Yeah, it's like just like lots of spindly woods and like gravestones everywhere. It's like just your sort of feels like run of the mill when you like are a tourist. Like
you're passing through this place on your way to some epic tower or castle in Bloodborne.
You're gonna go get something, and that's it. And there's like the more epic place after that. And but like now, like having run back and forth through that zone so many times, I've been like, this place is perfect. It's the perfect place. It looks amazing. It's like just perfect atmosphere. It's everything you want out of Bloodborne. It's just like atmosphere and like intricate level design. And so I was really excited he did that, because I was like, I guess I get to figure out what's going on in this place. And so there you go. That's a good one.
So that's completed, and that's been shipped off to Jacksepticeye. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my closing out of the year. That was the first one I had to like actually like crate up and give to some guys, and they had to like fill out a bunch of paperwork and be like, shoop, across the sea it goes.
Yes. For people who are not familiar, Jack is an Irish YouTuber. He's huge. He's among the top gaming YouTubers operating right now, I would say. In terms of reach and visibility, right? Yeah.
Very, 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 very influential.
Yes.
So
what's what is cooking now? What's next, if you were allowed to share?
Yeah, I've got 4 projects that are on the docket. One is huge. I've got a few like small ones. I got a Lord of the Rings, my first Lord of the Rings miniature. I've not ever made one.
Okay.
I'm doing a Council of Elrond with figures. I'm doing all the figures there.
Yeah.
Of the Jackson version. So
yes. Okay. This is where the Fellowship gets together to figure out what to do with the ring. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So doing that in a little glass dome.
Beautiful.
And then I've got I'm doing another Souls piece, which is like I'm calling the Souls retrospective piece. Someone came to me with like, hey, I want to do a Souls piece that is the whole series in some capacity.
Okay. Wow.
And there was some constraints on like how big it could go.
Right.
So I had to come up with this idea that was like, what's like a key image for the Souls games.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to share what it is, but I think it's super cool. I've shared some pictures here and there, little seeds of it.
All right.
And then I've got a Pokemon piece. I haven't done a Pokemon piece for a while, but I work with this guy. He hits me up for dioramas because he's a pin photographer. So he takes photographs of these really cute pins, and he always needs a backdrop. And we're doing a Celadon City, Poke Center and that's all I'll say for that one. And then I got a big one, which is going to take, if it happens, it goes through pretty much the whole year. It's,
wow. Jeez.
Huge. Okay. So if you like Super Nintendo RPGs, then this will be a very big one. This is the first one where it's like it's not the biggest one. It's intricate in how I'm going to be utilizing the space on it. A lot of these miniatures I'll make, they go up, or they like sort of lift the earth. The earth lifts up the rest of everything up, and you get a bunch of like dirt around the bottom. And this one is one where I'm basically cutting out the earth to show interiors, scenes. And so it will be...
I think I know what this is, because you've talked a little bit about it. You have a Discord community that I love being part of. So, you know, I don't know how public you are with some of this stuff, but I know a little bit.
You've seen it. So.
Yeah. Okay. We were talking about the same thing. Yeah, I'm very excited. I didn't realize that would be like a year-long project.
It's
I didn't realize
very,
how
very
big. It will be.
Yeah.
Amazing.
A return client is a big fan. So
okay. Yeah, very excited to see that one take shape.
So okay, that's what's on deck, and I love it. And video. Despite my constant reluctance, I am like, I should probably do that. I'm on Instagram, like, oh man, and like everybody I know is making a full transition to video, and I'm like, oh man,
no. It's.
I'll try
it's
again.
Cool. It's interesting, but it just sucks. It sucks when it's like, oh, great, everyone's on this new thing. Now I got to do it, and I don't want to do that. It's annoying. Yeah,
I won't do it. Here's my catch. It's always the catches. If it's gonna stress things out, no, just don't do it. That's always like the thing now. Is like the FOMO of our current situations. It's always like, it's not worth it. Find the thing that fills you up. That isn't. You don't have to do the FOMO thing.
Yeah, it's great advice, and it makes me very happy when creative people say that, and they're like, I'm doing this because I like to do it, and not because it's hot or trendy to do it. And now I'm making commissions and making a living, and people love it because I love it. That is the dream, and you're living it. So thank you for being my guest on Influence. If people want to follow, if they want to keep up with your projects, Instagram, but where else? Who are you? Where are you on the social medias? Where should people go?
I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky. I still have a page on Twitter, but you won't see anything there.
Yep.
Not going to deal with the muskness over there. So Blue Sky, Instagram.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I got a Discord, but you'll have to hunt down.
Ooh.
I have a website too, but I got to update that.
A website?
So, yeah.
Website.com. I'll link to the website, the Blue Sky, and the Instagram in the show notes and the video description. If you're an audio listener, you should go and follow Sky to see what the hell we've been talking about, and or hop over to the video version on YouTube, because you're going to see it all there. Sketches, finished products, all of it. Thank you so much for being my guest. I love chatting about this stuff with you, and I'll see you tomorrow when we play some video games at some point.
Yeah, we got to do some more Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
got to actually get back to our 200-hour campaign that we got 10 hours into.
Our cursed Baldur's Gate campaign where we just murder everyone.
I guess we killed everybody. Oops.
Again, please stop what you're doing. Go and follow Sky, because the work is extraordinary, and it's hard to explain it verbally. You do have to take a look. So I hope you'll give him a follow, or pop over to my Instagram or the YouTube channel to see, examples of what we're talking about. These environments, the sculpture, the paper craft, the details that, again, zoom out. Oh my God, it's a 1-to-1 replica. Zoom in. Wow, it's an impressionist painting made of paper. I'm such a big fan of his work, and I'm glad to have him on the show. Glad to have this desk that I love and sit at every week to make this program. So thank you, Sky Burkson, and thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As always, please remember, Be kind. Rewind your podcasts after listening, and I will talk at you in 1 week's time.